All right. Well, if you see the camera in here, we're going live.
Okay, cool.
So if you do not want to be on camera or do not consent, just don't get in the front of the phone. So right now, I'm just going live. Maybe some of my friends that are back at George Mason can join us. Hopefully they can hear me. I don't know. I'm actually the type of person that tries on the cuff. I just like, you know what? Let me try to go live last minute. So I did not even prepare that. I just thought, hey, I got this mic. I'm at a podcast conference. Maybe I'll do this kind of thing in the future. So I'm doing a disclaimer. I am going live right now. So if you are not comfortable, obviously for consent, do not get anywhere in the shot of the camera. Therefore, I was thinking about consent and all that. You don't have to worry about consent if you're not in the viewpoint of that camera. If you're cool with being on camera, then you're right there. That is your explicit way of saying you consent to being on camera. The only camera is that cell phone right there. So for discretionary issues or whatever, if you're not comfortable being on camera, do not do that. It's in the back of the room. I'll also say this, as we are in a space of innovation and creativity, I made that up, not made that up. I decided to go live like 20 minutes ago when I was like, you know what? Why, I got a lapel mic, I got a phone, a cell phone. Why not go live? And I was actually kind of inspired by our speaker yesterday. After I get this video or this live stream, I can rip it and turn it into other things. So I'm bringing back a lot of gems to bring back to the students. And that's really what I'm going to talk about is how do I use podcasting to help student leaders at George Mason. But I'll let people trickle in. I'll just keep on doing my disclaimer. I'm going live. I'm live streaming right now. So while I live stream, if you do not consent to being on camera, just don't get in the way of the phone. So you could be behind the camera, you could be right there. But if you're cool, you ask the question, you're cool with that, your voice, you like your voice, you can ask your question and the voice will be picked up. But I just want to do that disclaimer. If you do not want to be on camera, just don't get in the eye shot of that. I'm going live right now. If you're cool with being on camera, more power to you. Probably you shouldn't say anything in a podcast conference that you're scared about being on camera, but hey, disclaimer. So I'm gonna let people trickle in. I don't know, because I know that we're at least 15 minutes. So quick math, what is that? Technically is now? Because I'm supposed to be 11:10.
It is. You were supposed to be 11:15. It's 11:28, so you have 2 minutes.
2 minutes. All right, there. Quick math. 2 minutes. You get your drink of water. Duh, hey. My son is the Berniac in math, and so he's good with it. But 2 minutes. You could be my timekeeper. I don't know see my live streaming people. I don't know if you see me. Shout out. I can't do the comments. I'm doing it on my phone. So I don't know. I couldn't, I try to do it last minute, but I think I'm really jealous of the university here. They got a whole team of people. If George Mason gave me money, I would have brought a team because I think that's the greatest way to do that and divide and conquer is, I could just be the personality and then I got the people behind the camera. But when you're a team of one, for your own indie podcast, you got to make it happen. Low tech, high tech, however it goes. Well, I think I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Respect people's time and also end early and also understand that we got like a couple more. I'm always a person of conferences. You might get information overload. Do we have some people in there on the stream? No? Okay, but it's all good because, this is the positive. This is what I always tell people when they do live streaming is don't always over focus on who's joining you in that actual live moment because once again, the live stream, once it closes, this is still a long form video. That's one. Two, now learning from that gentleman that we did the other day that you can take this and disseminate it in other modalities. So it's always a win. I find a win. But for the purpose of this one, my name is Philip Wilkerson. My 9 to 5 is I'm an employer engagement consultant at George Mason Career Services. So in that normal 9 to 5 role, I work with employers looking to hire and recruit Mason students. Has nothing to do with podcasting. That's my 9 to 5. But podcasting is a hobby, a love of mine, and a way that I like to connect with people. So I'll explain why am I here? Because you're like, why is this guy here if he's in employee relations? So this is a little bit about me. That's my 9 to 5, but I'm also the host of my own podcast, Positive Filter. I started that podcast before I even got to Mason. I worked at George Mason in 2017 in the current role, but I'm also a Mason alum myself. So I went to grad school at Mason, and I'm currently right now a PhD student at George Mason in communication. So I had these multiple, I'm a staff member, I'm a alumni, and I'm a student. I have all, I like to call, I had the 3 different experiences and identities. And also I forgot to talk, like my main title is I'm the unofficial mayor of Mason. Was I voted by anyone? No. Self-appointed, but it was just a joke. I have a TEDx about that, about how being connected into the different communities at George Mason made me the unofficial mayor. And I say that to say, like, I talk to everybody, everyone had, all the different stakeholders. And ideally, tying in, podcasting has been my way to be that person connected in different spaces. Also, for the purposes of this presentation, I am the faculty advisor for the podcast club at George Mason. You go have a seat, gentlemen. Podcast club at George Mason. The podcast club at George Mason, this is the main thing, is a registered student org. We have about 500 registered student orgs at George Mason. And a lot of the big misnomers or myths about that is this podcast club, we do not have a podcast. So what I mean by that is not like, they join together and through this club, we're making or curating content. The podcast club is basically a creator hub where we're supporting the different podcasters in those identities. So if a student wants to do their own podcast, if a faculty and staff member wants to do their own podcast, if an alum, we're a hub where we're like creators help creators. So that is the big misnomer that I want to get out there, is that we are not, you can't look up Podcast Club at George Mason and see that we have our own curated show, but we have a list of officers in which we're really trying to break down the notion that only like marketing students can do a podcast or only marketing professors, right? We're thinking about the whole ecosystem, like everyone at George Mason can benefit from podcasting, and our role as the podcast club is to bring those creators together, talk about best practices. We're going to do a webinar, how to be a good host. We do have facilities at George Mason called The Mix, where they have a studio. We're going to do like a thing like train a trainer, where you like, no matter what your major is, let's learn how to use this equipment. So that is really, in essence, what the podcast club is for. It's not to create a podcast, but to support podcasters of those various identities across George Mason, faculty, staff, mainly students and alum. And so, I've been podcasting. I love it. Quick note, this is my broad, I think it's just the main thing I think about when I think about podcasts is this just a way to magnify your mission and your voice, right? If you're passionate about helping students, then you have basically the marketing arm to elevate it. I don't get paid. I don't have no brand sponsors. I don't have that, but the ROI and the reach of podcasting has truly changed my life, right? It's given me confidence in rooms that I'm not in, helped me share my message, help, and I tell that to the students across majors, like, if you're going into creating podcasts for yourself with making big bucks, probably reframe that. Think about, okay, how can this help you elevate your thought leadership? So one of our presidents of our club, he's actually a government major. He has no intentions of being a podcaster full time, but he loves to learn. He uses podcasts for one, the ones that he listens to learn. And then he also hosts his own podcast called The State Of, kind of play on words like the State of the Union. And he's interviewing people, his classmates, his professors, about political science. So it's a way to just basically be a complementary arm to him learning about the field that he wants to go into. So I love that. I love Slidos. Get your phone out. It's okay. I love to learn a little bit about what comes to mind, when you think about the word community. And this is a word also. Do as many words as you can. If you have difficulty, for those online, you go to slido.com. So you can also do it on your desktop. And if you go to slido.com, the reference number is 76743 638. So that's 767 64638. So you can do it on your desktop as well if the QR code is acting up, because that's the reference number. But just a couple moments, people join in. Extended learning, yes, yes. Now, mind you, you're also, these answers are things I'm gonna rip, because I think I'm gonna pull them back and say, yo, these are some of the things we think about community, and what it comes out of this will help me. Friends, right? And I'm gonna tie that in. I think this does talk to the importance of registered student orgs and student leadership beyond the classroom. Friends, collaboration, knowledge sharing, yes. Basically, I mean, let's think about this. The words that you have in here, keep on going, is basically what we're doing right now in real time, right? Building communities, right? This HigherEd PodCon. And so what we think about, as I said to people, don't wait to create. These are always opportunities to create these incubating hubs at your, like I started at RSO. I felt like that because that was the vehicle in which I was familiar with. I'm also the faculty advisor for two other student orgs, the George Mason NAACP, as well as the Iota Alpha chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And so that's why when I thought of the word community, I was like, insert the modality. So it doesn't have to be an RSO or student org. It could be, an employer resource group, like whatever your organization is, podcasters, and when you're bringing your colleagues to help, just any kind of hub and community. And this is literally the benefits that we have from building that community for the students, right? RSOs are a way for socialization, right? Registered student orgs are a great way to have friends. Registered student orgs are also a great way to meet people across the whole university, because we can also very easily get siloed in our majors, right? Like that gentleman that I said is the president, he could just be around government students all the time. But this is an opportunity for him to collaborate and meet people that he will not, beyond his gen eds, have classes with, right? Collaboration, student leadership, extended learning. I think the Thrive podcast is an example of this student leader right here that's in here, is an opportunity to take what you're learning outside the classroom and practice it. I like to say with student orgs, one of the things you can get is those intangible learning that you get, like leadership, delegation, the what we call solve for transferable skills. You get that through student leadership. Knowledge sharing, like imitation is the greatest form of flattery. I've taken so many ideas from other people. And so these are the benefits of community and the benefits of starting it. And like I said, from my lens in the vehicle, it was like I was just going to find a modality that worked at my institution, which was student orgs. So we'll just learn about why. What was the point? Why did we even start a podcast club? How we launched it? The little bit of a timeline. Just showing you my timeline is not going to always be your timeline, but I think some people are here like, how long did it took? Ours, when you see our timeline, it moved very fast, because once you know a certain system, you can accelerate your launch, because depending on the resource allocation and like things. What are we doing? How you can do that, and just leave with ideas. So I kind of like people like that to know ahead of time. And I don't know. I guess I don't know if the organizers, but I'm happy to give you these slides to anybody afterwards. So what we saw on campus. So I, without saying, is not a shy person. I wouldn't be calling myself the unofficial mayor of Mason if I wasn't. So I remember when I first got it to George Mason in 2017. I'm always a person that says, "Oh, you like the same thing," and I just start putting people on random email lists to like make my own email listserv. So when I started hearing that people had podcasts, I was just like, "Oh, great, you got a podcast," and I started putting it into an Excel spreadsheet. This is 2017 when I first got to George Mason. Students, staff, faculty, the like. Then I was like, well, I'm doing this manually. Let me make it a Microsoft form, and started like, hey, do you have a podcast? Tell me your RSS feed and all that. And then I did, particularly when I made this podcast directory, I would ask questions like, what is your affinity to Mason? Are you a faculty member that does podcasting? Are you a student? Are you an alum? So I kind of built that up. And then I realized, like, while we had these different spaces, there was no way, like, we're at an institution with all these resources at George Mason with many different podcasters. We have the faculty and staff. We have that, but we don't know about it. Like we could have been helping, a rising tide lifts all boats. So I was like, what way can we leverage this, right? And how can we connect and just really embed podcasting into the whole ecosystem of George Mason in different spaces, like supporting the faculty members that are doing it, supporting the students that are doing it, support like basically kind of selfishly supporting myself, like pouring into myself because I had those different identities. So I just started kind of doing it and putting it together. And I thought about this too, is that when I was thinking about people starting podcasts, I started seeing a lot of students, like I work in the career space, and I would see a lot of students that are in marketing or communication, and they're like, hey, I need to get a job. And I was like, do you have a portfolio? Like, do you have anything? They're like, no. I was like, why are you waiting to create? Like, don't wait to create. Why don't you start your own podcast? And like, it don't have to be a long series, but just start that so that you can say, when you go out into the world of marketing, you have tangible stuff that you've already done, right? Like you created content, and you don't have to say you had a boss or not. Like people always think like to wait to create, like you need to have the branding of a large studio, right? I always use this phrase. Do you need a high-tech camera to make a movie, or a studio, the backing of a studio? No, I can make my own movie with my iPhone and a YouTube channel, right? Do I need a publishing company to write a book? No, I can self-publish, or I can write and then write for the school paper, right? And all those things. So I was saying that to say this could also be serving as a hub for anyone that has professional aspirations in media, but don't have a way or a vehicle to get that experience. I say, don't wait to create. Join our podcast club and learn from other people and do your own thing. So I was just seeing all these things, lack of community, lack of, just everything. And then rather than wait, I was like, okay, I can use the modality of a registered student org or a student organization to corral it, but other spaces are doing them as internships. Other people are doing it. The key point for this podcast club, though, is that I really wanted a vehicle for students across majors. That was the biggest focus. The biggest focus for me for helping with this podcast club was that, the comm students, communication, they actually have it in, they have a podcasting semester long class. They have, that experiential built into the curriculum. So I'm not gonna, George Mason's doing a great job for those comm students, but what about a random like me, random history major that wanted to do it? Where can I get that support and learning? So do we have a lot of comm people involved? Absolutely. But we want to make sure that we know that this is for everyone, not major based, but the skills you want to grow. So just kind of curious, the gauge right now kind of helps. And I think just in Lane, this will probably just help in regards to what space, because that's also the misnomer, is that because people think the podcast club has the word podcast, that they have to be actively looking to produce one to be a part of it. So let me just say that. So the main thing for us in the podcast club too is you do not actively have to want to do podcasting to be a part of the club and find benefit from it. So once again, we have, our president, who is a government major, it does actively have a podcast, but our social media or PR chair for the club does not have a podcast and has no aspirations to do it, but she's using the podcast club as our PR chair to build the experience of doing public relations for something external than herself. So the benefit for her is not getting podcasting out of it. It could be like, brand management of a student org, right? Our treasurer, the treasurer for the podcast club is a student. Probably the same thing. They listen to podcasts. They love listening to it. It was the president's buddy in class, another government major, that he kind of like, say, hey man, you want to be the treasurer? Okay. No aspirations to do their own podcast, but loves listening to podcasts. And now gonna have we have a separate bank account. Most registered student orgs can launch their own bank account so that they can have their own funds. Ideally, too, just George Mason is really great about supporting. They have tier levels, and so we have a thing called Student Funding Board. So if I would have got this next year, we're going to do if I could have registered a couple students and students could have came, we can get up to $5,000 per year if we're a legit student org with a constitution, all that, for professional development for the student org. So each club does that. So the treasurer would be like, all right, they would do the study. We would probably put that onus on them to connect with the student funding board committee people to get the money and then keep the receipts and all that. So there's roles and responsibilities at all this. So I'm glad you did this. So not everyone that wants to create or build a community that in this reference of the podcast club necessarily needs to have their own podcast or even have aspirations to do so, but just somewhere they like it. They have an interest in listening or supporting it. So this was our vision, right? We want to support podcasters. We wanted to connect creators across the campus. We want to encourage collaboration, and we want to develop communication skills and build confidence and belonging, right? And so, like, as you can say, I can go down every single point and say how we do that, right? Supporting podcasters, being an extension to resources that are available to them around campus, that hidden curriculum. We got, GMU libraries. We have so many resources that go untapped just because people don't know it. We're just trying to say, oh man, like, did you know that you can rent a studio? Like, everyone can rent the studio at the Mix, and then we have another studio at the Fuse building. So we made a list of all the recording spaces that students can use. Oh, you don't have a camera? You don't know where to get a camera? Or, we made a reference list, like you can go to Star Labs, which is like you can rent a camera from George Mason. And so that's just the way, like, we're going to support you by at least having the resources where you can go. Connecting creators, right? Think about it, guest for guest, So now we have a hub where you're like, wow, like, you got a podcast, I got a podcast, let's do a guest swap, right? And so we understand this could be an incubator or a space for collaboration in that way. Communication skills, both within the podcasting world, but also as a student leader. The president, Max, this is the first time he told us, this is the first time he was in student government in high school, but he wasn't like the main guy. And, he probably was like a student senator. And then he's currently right now very involved in political science. He's involved in George Mason student government, like the student senate. But this is the first time he's ever been a president of an org. And so this is an opportunity for him to work on his communication skills, leadership skills, all that in real time. And then the confidence and belonging. There's some of the leaders, the e-board would have never met each other unless they joined this club. So it built new connections to people that never probably would have crossed paths unless they had this central point. And so that is the vision we have. And ideally, to scale, we're hopefully executing that in some way, and not going from 0 to 100, but we know these are the core things. We are touching on it, and we're being successful in our first year, because we're going into our second year right now. And so I just wanted to give you a gauge. That's the state podcast. That's his. So, right, just give you an example. And then I put the WGMU because of his confidence. One of our leaders, his name is Brandon. He actually is a comm major, and through the confidence of being a student officer, he's our VP. He now hosts his own weekly sports show on WGMU. So some of them are taking the things they learn from other people and actually putting it to practice as creators of content themselves. And so just some other things, the George Mason model. I think about it, right? We're just trying to think, like, we have so many. I shout out to Greg, who is one of the organizers here. I sent him my podcast directory email, and he was able to make us a little community on his HigherEd pod. So now we have a list where all the podcasts that are affiliated with George Mason can be. So I'll shout out to him for doing that. And so I can send that link. I still manually ask people to fill out the Microsoft form that I have to build a podcast community, but then it's also cool to see it somewhere else too, right? And check out new shows and support each other. And like I said, we support all these people, right? And I just wanted to make sure that it's, while it's student-led, while it's for everyone in the ecosystem of George Mason. So I like this graphic. We always think about it. I don't know, Jeremy Podney. I can't pronounce his last name, but he's really, this is the new wave, right? That we're talking about the careers everywhere and the ecosystem of higher ed, and that now the onus of career development is not only on the career center. Like me, the career center is it's faculty and staff and everybody. So I took that same model and applied it to the podcast club about how we're ingrained in every part of this ecosystem in different ways, right? And so think about it. For student podcasters, it helps them build their skills. For faculty and staff, an opportunity for mentorship outside the classroom, and connecting them and you know, learn from being around somebody. So that gives a faculty and staff the opportunity to mentor. For alumni, it helps them come back. We, like I said, in that directory, we're trying to connect alum that podcast too, right? And like they're doing it. So like I said, I had that shared identity. When I find out there's an alum in the podcasting world, that's another way for me to pull in advancement wise and say like, hey, you still want to be tapped into Mason as an alum? Why don't you and you got a podcast as an alum, maybe you can mentor one of these podcast club students, right? So I do have I do have their emails and access, and they say they love to talk. Sometimes they have collaborated, and alum and guests have done that guest swap. So it's a way to still pull in alum and make them feel connected to George Mason, and then student leadership for them, campus partners. It has helped us move across divisions because now we're involved with student involvement. That's a department. Now we're involved with the mix, which is the innovation hub, because we're using their studio equipment. Now we're plugged into other parts of student affairs, and then just anyone that wants to be a guest. And so we feel like we're really plugged in. And as I showed you right there, that's only the tip. The 70 podcast across Mason, that was me starting grassroots with that Microsoft forum and just getting people around. I know there's probably I learned new learning labs, and there's probably 200, 250 plus podcasting affiliated with George Mason out in the world. Maybe even more if you add alum, right? Because we have 100 and something thousand alum. But this is just a tip. But we know that this directory could grow too and just be a space that wow, I didn't know that, alum that graduated 10 years ago still has a podcast, right? That's still a connection to the community. And actually, oh yeah.
The 70 podcasts that you've been able to identify, how frequently do they put out a podcast? Is it weekly?
Oh, I don't know. No, so that one, I gotta look at the nerdy stuff. I asked them on their question. So I literally just, when I walk up to someone, I mean, this is how extroverted I am. I had the QR code. I said, oh snap, you got a podcast? Fill out this real quick, and then I get them on an email list, and then I add them to a listserv. And so I mean, I have ones where some of them out of that 70, I bet some of them died. No offense, but some of them stopped going. I don't know when I met them. I probably got them to fill out the form 3 years ago. So you don't have me do some real nerding out data, was it data scrubbing? But it's all over the place. Some of them are mini series. Some of them are it was I found out a professor did one, and they just did a little capstone mini series. It was 5 and completely done. So I'll send you the spreadsheet. I don't know. That's a long round answer to say it's all over the place. All over the place, because the identities of the people that make podcasts are all over the place. I literally was just if I'm in an alum room, if I'm in an alum space, I'm like, oh, Sab, you got a podcast? Please fill this out. Because I'm an alum, and I could have added way more titles. I'm a president of one of the alumni chapters. So I'm in alumni meetings. I'm in all these different spaces around Mason. But when I find out someone has a podcast, I'm trying to get them on this list in some form or fashion. Because as I said, with that, they can connect them to a student. This ecosystem is fully involved here. I don't know, did anyone go to my colleague's Kelly's presentation yesterday? So Kelly Chandler, like I said, she did one. She's at the Stern Center. She's on the podcast directory, right? That was an example. I found out Kelly had one. Oh snap, Kelly, you got a podcast? Put this on there so we can promote it and be on it. And I've been a guest on her podcast. So once again, that guest swap. So building a community around that. And then conversely, one of the departments, and I'll go on tangents, one of the departments, the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, they wanted to do a podcast for their own individual college called Chess Connections or something. And now that they knew they had a podcast club, they were like, hey, we want to make an internship out of it. Can you just disseminate this via your listserv? So now we're supporting the departments and units that actually want to do, podcasting. So we were able to be just another channel. They like obviously marketed the internship directly to the Department of Communication, but we also said like, don't limit yourself to only comm students that could have these skills. Let's send it to one of the podcast club members that is a history major but does podcasting and has the skills. So yeah, we're all over the place. So how this became an organization, it really went fast. It was literally from an email to like an email and to a club in like 6 months. So I do a little timeline. So we're the co-advisors for the first year. A woman emailed me and say, Phil, once again, all these about podcasts, you're collecting people together, you have your own podcast. This gentleman named Bud